Some cities didn't just get expensive, they got exhausting. That is the real story. Not just higher rent, not just pricier groceries, not just traffic that feels like a personal insult. We're talking about places where the cost of staying keeps rising, the stress keeps piling up, and more people are quietly deciding, you know what, I'm done. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the 12 cities Americans are leaving faster than ever. And this is not one of those lazy conversations where people complain about prices for 5 minutes and call it analysis. This is about something deeper, the growing gap between what people pay and what they actually get in return. Because at some point, people stop asking, can I afford to stay here? And start asking, well, why am I paying this much to be this tired? That is when the moving trucks start showing up. Across America, a lot of once desirable places are running into the same problem. Housing costs climbed, insurance got bolder than it should have, taxes kept knocking, congestion got worse, and everyday life started feeling like a subscription service nobody remembers signing up for. The result? More residents are rethinking where they live, where their money goes, and whether the so-called dream location is still worth a monthly financial migraine. And the wild part is this. Some of the places on this countdown are exactly the ones people used to chase. The made-it cities. The postcard cities. The places everybody swore were worth the sacrifice. Now, for a lot of people, the sacrifice is winning and the lifestyle is losing. So stay with me, because as we count down, you'll see which places are bleeding residents, why people are leaving, and which city has become the ultimate symbol of expensive, draining modern urban life. If you enjoy smart, thought-provoking content like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Now let's get into it. Number 10. Stockton, Modesto, California. Stockton, Modesto opens this countdown at number 10 because it tells a very specific American story. Even the cheaper alternative is starting to wear people out. For years, this part of inland California looked like the escape hatch for families priced out of the Bay Area and other coastal markets. The pitch was simple: more house, lower prices, and enough distance from the big metros to breathe financially. But recent moving data shows Stockton, Modesto still ranks among the places people are leaving, with Pods placing it on its 2025 list of top move-out areas, and again in its 2025 summer move-out rankings. The problem is not that Stockton, Modesto suddenly became San Francisco. The problem is that the math stopped feeling like a clear win. Our recent Redfin data shows median sale prices around $422,500 in Stockton and $450,500 in Modesto in early 2026. Those numbers are still lower than many coastal California markets, but they are high enough to make people ask an uncomfortable question. If I'm still paying this much, plus gas, plus commuting time, plus inland summer heat that feels like the sun has a personal grudge, what exactly am I saving? That is really the Stockton-Modesto issue. It is not one giant crisis. It is a slow accumulation of, this no longer feels worth it. You move inland hoping for relief, and instead you get a version of California where the price discount has narrowed, traffic still exists, and the lifestyle upgrade is not always dramatic enough to justify the trade-offs. Even local housing reporting noted expectations for higher Stockton home prices in 2025, which only adds to the feeling that the old affordability advantage is under pressure. So Stockton, Modesto lands at number 10 because it represents a failed promise more than a failed place. It was supposed to be the affordable backup plan. But when the backup plan starts feeling expensive too, people start backing out. Number 9, Central Jersey, New Jersey. Central Jersey comes in at number 9 because it represents one of the most frustrating financial traps in America, paying premium prices for the privilege of being close to somewhere else. It is not New York City, but a lot of residents end up carrying New York-adjacent costs anyway. That combination, high housing costs, heavy property taxes, and commuter expenses, has helped push Central Jersey into Pod's major move-out rankings in 2025. This is where the classic suburban promise starts to wobble. People move there for space, schools, and access. In theory, that sounds sensible. In practice, the bill can start looking like a luxury membership plan nobody remembers signing up for. New Jersey continues to have some of the highest property taxes in the country, and that matters because homeownership stops feeling like stability when your annual tax bill behaves like a second mortgage. Then comes the commuter squeeze. If you are paying a premium to stay within reach of a big job market, but that same access costs you time, transit money, tolls, and your remaining patience, the equation gets ugly fast. Central Jersey has a lot going for it: good communities, decent amenities, family appeal. But many households are increasingly asking whether strategic location is just a nicer phrase for financial compromise. And that is why people start looking elsewhere. It is not always because Central Jersey is bad. It is because the value proposition feels weaker than it used to. When the cost of staying starts overpowering the convenience of staying, the moving truck begins to look less like an emergency and more like a plan. That is why Central Jersey lands at number 9. It is the commuter squeeze in geographic form: expensive enough to hurt, practical enough to tempt you, and exhausting enough to make people leave anyway. Number 8. San Diego, California. San Diego lands at number 8 because it is one of the clearest examples of a city that sells a dream at a luxury price. Yes, the weather is beautiful. Yes, the coastline is stunning. Yes, the vibe is calmer than Los Angeles. But eventually, a lot of residents realize that Ocean Breeze does not pay rent. Pods listed San Diego among the places Americans are leaving in its 2025 moving trends, tying that outflow to high living costs and low housing affordability. And the numbers are not exactly subtle. Redfin's housing data shows San Diego home prices remain far above national norms, with the metro still sitting in deeply expensive territory in 2026. That creates a problem for middle-income households, young families, us, and even many professionals who make decent money but still feel like they are renting a view rather than building a future. That is really the San Diego issue. The city is lovely, but lovely can become financially punishing. People are not leaving because they suddenly stopped liking sunshine. They are leaving because paying elite prices for everyday life starts to feel less like success and more like sponsored suffering. A beautiful city loses some of its charm when groceries, housing, insurance, and childcare all seem determined to audition for the role of main stressor. San Diego also suffers from a weird emotional mismatch. It looks relaxed, but for many residents, living there is not relaxed at all. It is budgeting, squeezing, compromising, and telling yourself the beach makes it worth it. Sometimes it does. Increasingly, and for many people, it does not. That is why San Diego earns number 8. It is paradise with a payment plan, and more Americans are deciding they would rather keep the peace of mind than keep the zip code. Number 7. Long Island, New York. Long Island comes in at number 7 because it captures a very specific kind of American pain: the realization that homeownership can feel less like building wealth and more like entering a long-term endurance event. Pods ranked Long Island among the top move-out areas in 2025, and it is not hard to see why. The problem here is not just housing prices, it is the full package. Long Island gives you high home values, high carrying costs, and property taxes that can make even financially responsible adults stare into the distance for a few extra seconds. New York State and local tax burdens remain among the heaviest in the country, and Long Island homeowners feel that reality very directly. Now, to be fair, Long Island is not lacking in appeal. It has beaches, suburbs, schools, commuter access, and neighborhoods that many families genuinely love. But the cost of maintaining that lifestyle can become brutal. People are not just buying a house, they are buying into an ecosystem of expenses, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and proximity premiums that can slowly turn comfort into constant pressure. There is also the psychological side. If you are paying enormous monthly costs and still dealing with congestion, long commutes, and small lot living compared with cheaper parts of the country, the trade-off starts looking less noble and more ridiculous. At some point, people stop saying, "Oh, this is the price of a good life," and start asking, "Is this still a good deal?" That shift matters. Long Island is not emptying out because no one likes it. It is losing people because too many households feel financially pinned down by the cost of staying. And once a place starts feeling like a trap instead of an achievement, the exits get a lot more interesting. That is why Long Island lands at number 7. Number 6. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago takes number 6 because it is a city where the cultural value is still huge, but for many residents, the financial math is starting to lose the argument. Redfin ranked Chicago among the major metros with the highest net outflow in late 2025, and Pods also placed it among the places people are leaving. What makes Chicago so interesting is that it is not a one-note city at all. It has architecture, food, sports, neighborhoods with real character, and a downtown skyline that still knows how to make an impression. This is not some forgotten place with no upside. Chicago still has major city energy. The problem is that more residents feel like they are being asked to pay increasingly stressful costs for a lifestyle that no longer feels as secure as it should. Taxes are part of the story. Illinois has long struggled with fiscal pressure, and that filters down into everyday living in ways people feel. Housing may look cheaper than New York or San Francisco at first glance, but once you add property taxes, broader tax burdens, and general cost of living stress, the affordable big city label starts wobbling. Then there is burnout. Big city living works when the city feels like it gives back enough to justify the strain. But when costs rise, public frustration grows, and home ownership still feels farther away than people expected, the emotional contract begins to break. Chicago still offers the skyline and the restaurants. For a lot of people, though, it no longer offers enough financial breathing room. That is why Chicago ranks at number 6. It is not a city people leave because it lacks identity, and they leave because identity alone cannot carry a budget forever. At some point, even world-class pizza cannot solve a long-term affordability problem. Number 5. Seattle, Washington. Seattle lands at number 5 because it shows what happens when prosperity pushes the price of normal life out of reach. Redfin ranked Seattle among the metros with the biggest net outflow in late 2025, and Pods also named it as one of the places people are leaving. This is the prosperity paradox in city form. Seattle got richer, more important, and more desirable, especially through the tech boom. But for many residents, that success translated into a much harsher cost of everyday existence. Housing costs surged, the price of entry kept climbing, and the gap widened between high earners and everyone else trying to keep up. Our Redfin's local market data still shows Seattle area housing sitting far above the national baseline in 2026. Now, Seattle absolutely has strengths. It is scenic, educated, economically dynamic, and surrounded by natural beauty that honestly feels unfair. But a city can be beautiful and exhausting at the same time, and that is where Seattle loses people. Many residents are not leaving because they dislike the city. They are leaving because they feel the city stopped liking their budget. There is also a subtle emotional shift that happens in expensive success stories like Seattle. At first, rising costs feel like proof the place is thriving. Later, they start to feel like a warning that regular households are being priced out of the future. Yeah, you can only tell people that's just the market so many times before they respond by changing markets. That is why Seattle comes in at number 5. It is a city that won economically, but in the process made ordinary comfort harder to afford. And when living in a prosperous place starts making you feel financially smaller, leaving begins to make a lot of sense. Number 4, South Florida/Miami area. South Florida, especially the Miami area, comes in at number 4 because it is the perfect example of a place where glamour and financial stress learned how to coexist a little too well. Pods listed South Florida among the top areas Americans are leaving in 2025, citing high costs, overcrowding, and natural disaster concerns among the reasons. Miami still sells a fantasy very effectively. Beaches, nightlife, sunshine, international culture, luxury branding, it all looks fantastic on a screen. But once people actually live there, the cost structure starts talking back. Housing surged sharply after the pandemic migration boom, and insurance costs across Florida have become a serious financial issue, especially in risk-prone areas. Our recent state-level insurance reporting and housing coverage continue to show that Floridians are dealing with some of the highest property insurance burdens in the country. That matters because paradise gets less relaxing when every major bill behaves like it is trying out for a lead role. Housing costs rise, insurance gets louder, traffic becomes a daily insult, and climate risk shifts from theoretical to monthly premium. Suddenly, the dream location starts feeling like a very expensive subscription to stress with ocean views. The Miami area also illustrates what happens when popularity outruns infrastructure and affordability. A city can remain desirable and still become unsustainable for large numbers of residents. Those two things are not opposites. In fact, they often arrive together. That is why South Florida ranks at number 4. It is beautiful, exciting, and still deeply attractive. It is also increasingly expensive in ways that chip away at quality of life. When paradise starts behaving like luxury rent with humidity, more people decide it is time to leave. Number 3, New York City Metro. The New York City Metro takes number 3 because it remains one of the clearest examples of a place where ambition and exhaustion now share the same zip code. Redfin ranked New York among the top U.S. metros for net outflow in late 2025, with Philadelphia among the most common destinations for people leaving. New York still has power. It has culture, finance, energy, density, opportunity, and the kind of global status that makes people tolerate things they would never accept anywhere else. But the cost of that tolerance has gotten brutal. And housing remains among the most expensive in the country, daily life is relentlessly pricey, and tax burdens add another layer of pressure. The issue is not just rent, it is cumulative fatigue. It is paying a premium for almost everything while also dealing with crowding, long commutes, limited space, and a pace of life that can turn a normal Tuesday into a cardio event. For years, many people accepted that trade-off because New York felt worth it. Increasingly, more households are asking whether the return on that stress is still high enough, and that is the emotional turning point. When a city famous for possibility starts feeling like a place where you work constantly just to stand still, it begins to lose people who once thought they would never leave. That does not mean New York is dying. It means New York is expensive enough, intense enough, and draining enough that a growing number of people are rerunning the math. That is why New York lands at number 3. It is still iconic. It is still magnetic. But for many Americans, it has also become the cost of living pressure cooker they are no longer willing to live inside. Number 2, Northern California/San Francisco area. Northern California, especially the San Francisco area, takes number 2 because it is where housing absurdity reached world-class levels. Pods ranked Northern California and the Bay Area among the biggest move-out zones in 2025, and Redfin's late 2025 migration report still showed the San Jose-San Francisco region among the metros with the highest net outflow. This is the place where normal home prices started sounding like startup valuations. Yes, the Bay Area has innovation, high salaries, prestige, and some of the most influential companies on Earth. But that success came with a brutal side effect: housing costs that pushed ordinary families, younger professionals, and even many high earners into a permanent state of financial contortion. Our Redfin's local market data continues to show Bay Area prices sitting at extreme levels in 2026. What makes this region so difficult is that the problem is not isolated to one line item. Once housing becomes outrageous, it distorts everything else. People make longer commutes, delay home ownership, stay in rentals longer, share space longer, and carry a heavier emotional load because so much of life starts revolving around the cost of shelter. And the thing is, people can tolerate expensive living when they feel the upside is extraordinary. But when the price of staying feels detached from the actual quality of everyday life, the illusion breaks. That is what makes Northern California so powerful on this countdown. It is not just expensive. It is the place where expensive started to feel unreasonable even by big city standards. And that is why it ranks at number 2. It is a region of immense economic power, and for many residents, a housing reality they no longer want to subsidize with their sanity. Number 1, Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles takes the top spot because it did not just get expensive. For many residents, it got exhausting. Pods ranked Los Angeles as the number 1 major move-out area in its 2025 report, and Redfin also ranked Los Angeles first for net outflow among major metros in late 2025. LA has always had contradictions, glamour and gridlock, sunshine and stress, opportunity and absurdity. That tension used to be part of the brand. Now, for a growing number of Americans, it feels like the whole lifestyle has tipped too far toward the difficult side of the equation. Housing is the biggest culprit. Our Redfin's local market data shows Los Angeles home prices remain extremely high in 2026, and renters face similarly punishing conditions. But LA's problem is bigger than housing alone. It is the total system burnout. Traffic that eats time, insurance, and everyday costs that keep rising, and a general sense that too much effort is required just to maintain a normal standard of living. That is what makes Los Angeles the strongest closer for this list. It is not simply a city with expensive real estate, it is a city where the cost of staying can feel physical. You are not just paying more, you are spending more time, more patience, more mental energy, and more emotional bandwidth just to get through ordinary life. And at some point, people stop being impressed by the weather. They stop being seduced by the image. And they start asking a much sharper question. Why am I paying this much to live this hard? That is why Los Angeles is number one. It is the city where expensive became exhausting and where more Americans seem to be concluding that the dream no longer justifies the drain. We are down to number one through the countdown. Thank you so much for watching. We counted down the cities and metros where more Americans are deciding the cost, pressure, and trade-offs are no longer worth it. From Stockton Modesto's fading affordability promise, to Central Jersey's commuter squeeze, San Diego's luxury pricing, Long Island's property tax pain, Chicago's fiscal pressure, Seattle's prosperity paradox, South Florida's insurance shock, New York's pressure cooker lifestyle, the Bay Area's housing insanity, and Los Angeles's full system burnout. The common thread is simple. In too many places, people are not just leaving because life got expensive, they are leaving because life got exhausting. The latest move-out and migration data from Pods and Redfin both point to that pattern across many of these metros. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And in the comments, tell me this. Which city on this list surprised you the most, and which one do you think will keep losing people next?